So hello everyone, my name is Minan and I come from group 1, and in my group there's Han, Long, Win and Kate too. So the topic that we choose for this presentation is the causal relationship between exchange rates and economic growth, and by applying the theories we choose whether strong or weak currency is more beneficial for Vietnam. Is our table content. First is the introduction, and we will use the standard macroeconomics principle to explain the open economy exchange rate and the causal chain between exchange rate and economic growth, and the benefits of a strong and weak currency, and what should Vietnam apply to it industry, and finally is the conclusion. First, what is an open economy? So according to Mankiw, an open economy is an economy that interacts with other economies in the world, and there are two main activities in an open economy. First is sell and buy goods and services in the world product market, and second one is buy and sell assets in the world financial market. So in an open economy, the national income is determined by four key components, comprising consumption, investment, government purchase, and net exports. Create the equation Y equals C equal I equal G equal NX, and this identity was always holds and forms a foundation for the analyzing how exchange rates affect economic growth, and recalling the national saving in the income of the nations that left after paying the current consumption and government purchase. It introduced a crucial identity S equal I plus NX, and if the saving exceeds the investment, the country's saving is running a trade surplus, whereas the opposite, the trade deficit, occurs when investment exceeds savings. And in addition, the formation also interprets the structural connections between product markets and financial markets. A trade surplus creates capital outflow as the quantity of export is larger than imports, while a trade deficit implies capital inflows as imports is greater than export. And understanding the basic definition and connection between two concepts play a crucial role in identifying how the shift in the exchange rate influence net export, aggregate demand, aggregate supply, and national output.
The other crucial flow is the flow of financial resource, NCO, or net capital outflow. Now, NCO refers to the purchase of foreign asset by domestic resident minus the purchase of domestic asset by foreigner. When NCO is positive, meaning that domestic residents are buying more foreign asset than foreigners are buying domestic asset, it is considered that the capital is said to be flowing out of the country. The opposite of that is when NCO is negative, meaning that domestic residents are buying less foreign asset than foreigners are buying domestic asset. Then the country is considered experiencing a capital inflow. Now, with NX and NCO clearly defined, we could conclude to a fundamental identity between those two, that for an economy as a whole, net export and export are always equal to net capital outflow, NCO. This is what we call an accounting identity, an equation that must always hold true because of how the variables are defined and measured. Now with this fundamental identity in mind, we could review a crucial link between domestic economic activity and international flow. With the equation for the gross domestic product being I equal to C plus I plus G plus NX. By rearranging the equation and incorporating a definition of national saving, we could conclude a powerful relationship that saving S equal to domestic investment I plus net capital outflow NCO. This equation signifies that the natural saving must be used to finance either its domestic investment or its purchase of foreign asset. In conclusion, this financial flow of goods and capital are governed by key prices that connect domestic and international market, being the exchange rate, and Hunt is going to talk more about this. Well, with the fundamental identity in mind, we could find a link between what happened inside a country and what actually happened in international market. We start with the basic GDP identity that Y is equal to C plus I plus G plus NX. If we rearrange this equation and apply the definition of national saving, being S equal to Y minus C minus G, we can get a very important relationship. That saving is S is equal to domestic investment I plus net capital outflow NCO. This means that a country's saving must go somewhere. They either finance domestic investment or they are used to purchase foreign asset, which we call net capital outflow. Now, so the flow of goods and the flow of financial capital are directly connected, and the key variable that's tied to this domestic and international market together is the exchange rate, which determine how attractive domestic versus foreign assets are. Well, next up we'll talk about exchange rate. So in the open economy, there's two main exchange rate: nominal exchange rate and real exchange rate. Now, before we get into the details of the two of the exchange rate, we first gotta know what exactly exchange rate is. Well, by definition, it is the value of one country's currency in relation to another's, showing that or giving insight on how much one currency is needed to buy another. Now, with this in mind, I would like to introduce to you all to real exchange rate. Now, real exchange rate is determined by the relative price of goods and service in a country compared to the same good and service in another country. As you can see here, for this equation, real exchange rate equal to E divided by P, or divided by P stars. The nominal exchange rate, however, demonstrates how many units of foreign currency 1 unit of domestic currency can buy. A perfect example is that if the exchange rate is 27 Vietnam dong per US dollar, this means that in the official market, $1 can be exchanged for 27,000 Vietnam dong. Now, let's talk more about the real exchange rate and how changing it can affect a country trade. Now, when a currency appreciates, domestic goods become more expensive relative to foreign goods, and as a result, the export falls, the import rise, and net import decrease. In contrast, when a currency depreciates, domestic goods become cheaper. It leads to higher export, lower import, and an increase in net exports. Well, next up, Honey is going to talk more about the causal chain in the open economy.
Hi, my name is Han. Next, I'll talk about the causal chain, how exchange rates affect aggregate demand and economic outputs. So, to talk about how exchange rate affect on aggregate demand, there are three ways to explain. First, a lower domestic price level will reduce the interest rate. Second, a lower interest rate will reduce the currency depreciates. And third, when the currency is low, net exports will increase, and therefore the quantity of output demanded will increase. So as you can see here in the chart, it explains how the price level and the output affects the aggregate demand. Next, an impact of a weak currency in a country, which also calls depreciation. So when a country is having a weak currency, their exports become cheaper and their import become more expensive. Therefore, their net exports will increase at every price level and their AD curve will shift right. So you can see the short-run result is the GDP and the output is increasing, and also the price level is increasing. And in contrast, the impact of a strong currency, which also called appreciation, brings a totally different effect to the country. The exports will become more expensive and the imports become cheaper. Their net exports therefore falls at every price level, and their AD will shift left. So the short-run results that we could see here is the GDP and the output will decrease, and the price level will also decrease.
Next, we move to the policy's dilemma between the strong and weak currencies. These are complex questions because there is no perfect answers for all the countries. The best choice depends on a country's economies, policies, and the trade-off between supporting domestic producers or maximizing the consumer welfare, because every weak and strong currencies has its own growing currencies, which is mainly benefits domestic producers. First, it will stimulate the export by making local goods cheaper for foreign buyers or consumers. Secondly, it will boost the aggregate demand by raising output and employment in the short run. And finally, it will protect domestic industries because the import become more expensive. So our domestic consumer will use the local goods because it's cheaper. On the other hand, a stronger currencies bring a different set of advantages. First, it will increase consumer purchasing power because it's making import more affordable and improving the life standard. Secondly, it will lower production cost for firms which is rely on imported materials. And importantly, by cheaper import will reduce the pressures on domestic price, so it will help to control the inflation. The overarching economic reality. To sum up, in reality, to truly change the trade balance, a country must affect the nominal saving or domestic investment, not simply target import or export. The trade restrictions or attempts to weaken the currencies cannot change this underlying macroeconomic reality.
So now we will need to talk about Vietnam's situation, whether it should use a strong or weak currency for its economy. First of all, we will need to talk about its challenges. Vietnam right now still rely on import intermediate goods, for example, Samsung components or high-tech technology and textile. This creates exposure to imported inflation, but luckily, we have some factors to mitigate these problems. The domestic value-added principle buffer this risk, and high local production costs in VND versus strong export revenue in USD. And we believe that having a weaker currency is more beneficial for Vietnam because we still a developing country, which means that our manufacturing or the profit margin still remain healthy for many export firms. And in addition, we're very strong at tourism industry, which industry gain full benefit of competitiveness because of minimal import offsets. And our final recommendations is having a weaker currency is a superior strategic choice and very crucial for sustaining long-term economic momentum and supporting local enterprise. In conclusion, the answer to whether a strong or weak currency is better depends on what country prioritizes and how its economy is structured. A strong currency gives cheaper import, greater purchasing power, and better stability while also helping keep inflation in check. A weaker currency is sure to protect domestic industry, boost export, and support domestic producer. For Vietnam, maintaining a weak currency proves to be advantageous, as its economy focuses heavily on manufacturing, tourism, and global trade. This is the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening.